I'm here to introduce my best friend of 32 years. It's a privilege and an honor to be standing here to introduce her. I have watched Lynda. We've literally grown up together. We're only 40, so we met at 8. Okay, that's a lie. But we have gone through a lot together, and to see her today to create something like this, I will remind you, it takes an incredible amount of discipline, self-discipline, to practice 4 to 8 hours a day, 7 days a week to put together something like this on this caliber. Lynda's she's traveled all over the world. I know because I was there when she was watching her cat or something, plants, house sitting when she would be out traveling. And her road brought her up here many years ago, and 1996 in fact. And this place kind of grows on you. I guess everybody in the audience understands how that works. So you can leave, and you can say you're going to leave, but don't say, I'm never coming back, right? I don't think she ever said that. She came back a few years later and met her husband here, Dennis, and the rest is kind of history, 21 years later. But today, this afternoon, you're going to hear lots of great music, and hopefully, if we get on our feet and stand at the end, she might even play. I know she has one just saved for the end, so if we get an encore, we can get that last piece. I won't tell you what it is. But last night I got to hear this. It's amazing. You guys will feel like you're in New York City. I think, without further ado, are you guys ready? Please put your hands together for my best friend, Lynda Lybeck-Robinson.
Never underestimate the power of simplicity. If you ever get an email from me, you'll see that it says that at the very bottom of it. I don't know who said it first. I've looked it up many times because I like to credit authors, but I know that I say it all the time because that's how my brain works. When I announced that I was going to be doing this recital, it was just kind of a bucket list idea. About 6 months ago, I decided I was going to pursue my national certification of music teaching through the Music Teachers National Association. And in the process, I began studying with Dr. Deborah Rambo-Sin online, and was so inspired by her and the selections of music that we were working on that I decided that I would do a recital to share it with my students and their parents and the community that would come. Once I put it out there, I had so many people say, "You're so brave," that I realized, really? Maybe I bit off more than I could chew. But the fact is, I have enjoyed every minute of practicing for this day today. This music is so phenomenal, and I'm so honored to be able to share it with you. Now, when I announced it too, I had a student who was 5 at the time who said, "Is this something that someone like me could come to?" And I don't remember exactly how I responded, but it was something to the effect of, it would mean the world to me if she came. And I decided when I thought about, well, what is my theme for today? My theme is 5. 5, because this recital is for 5 years old, and it's for 55 years old, it's for 105 years old. 5 things per piece I will announce to try to keep it a little bit brief and a little concise. For my older students, they can tell you that I'll say, I want you to come back next week with 5 interesting things about this composer. Find the weirdest things you can find, not just when they were born, but find some. What did they eat? Who were they married to? What were their habits? So that's another 5 right there. And then I realized that I have only 5 composers that I'm featuring. So there, 5 is the number of the day. I want to thank my massage therapist, Amy Marie, because that's when I came up with this bright idea in the middle of one of the most relaxing massages, I can tell you. So, the first piece that I will play today is by Edward MacDowell, and this is where I need my glasses, because I want to stick to 5 and not talk all day long. I'll be playing the MacDowell Shadow Dance, Opus 39, number 8. Number 1, what is opus? Does everybody know what opus means? Opus is a collection of works. So in a really simple way, it's like if you have an album and you've recorded 10 albums, that would be your opus, 10 musical works, and number 2, for example, would be the second piece on that in that collection. Does that make sense? So you can imagine when somebody has written like Opus 90 or Opus 127, they've written a lot of music. Number 2, Edward MacDowell lived from 1860 to 1908. That's not normally the most interesting thing on the list, but he only lived to be about 47 years old. And he composed a lot of incredibly beautiful music in that short lifetime. Number 3, Mr. MacDowell wrote many pieces for orchestra and piano, but his main expressive love was piano composition. Number 4, he and his wife lived on a farm. They didn't have any children, and he loved to write about nature. And one of his most popular pieces was called To a Wild Rose, which you may have heard of, and if you haven't, look it up. It's a stunning piece. And 5, tarantella. A tarantella is a dance written in 6/8 time signature, a Spanish dance that tarantella means tarantula or spider. Well, this isn't a tarantella, however, it has very much a feel of a tarantella. So as you're listening to this piece, it's very much like a dance, which makes sense to me that Edward MacDowell would call it a shadow dance. So I hope you enjoy it. Debussy's Dr. Gradus ad Parnassum. I'll give you 5 things about this piece. Number 1, it literally means, in Greek mythology, Parnassus is the home of the Greek gods. This title, Dr. Gradus ad Parnassum, means steps to Parnassus. It's his way of celebrating piano students as they become better and better in their playing and in their artistry. Number 2, this piece included in his collection that's called Children's Corner. And many piano students around the world have played through this collection of pieces and enjoyed his music. Number 3, Claude Debussy was born in France, lived from 1862 to 1918, and he lived 56 years. Number 4, Mr. Debussy started college at the age of 10 years old. And number 5, Mr. Debussy's music reflected in the impressionistic art of his time, but he didn't like being called an impressionist. He is considered to be the forefather of 20th century music. When you listen to his music, what picture comes to your mind? piece that I'll be playing today is by Sergei Prokofiev, Inquieto, Opus 22, number 15. This one was sort of a fluke because it was assigned to me by the Federation. It was a piece I have to analyze for an assignment, and I thought, oh no. Well, I picked it up and I looked for something. Now, I'm going to ask my students right now, when you see a piece that looks hard to you, what is it, the letter starts with the letter P, what is it that you look for that makes the piece easier? Yes, I heard it. Somebody, say it loudly.
Patterns.
Patterns. That's exactly right. We look for our patterns in our music, and that helps make it easier. Well, I noticed in this particular piece, I better get to it. Oh, here it is. Nope, that's not it. It has a pattern throughout. But it might be on a different tone. Okay, so listen for that pattern as I play through this little piece. Now, it's only about 30 seconds long, and I'll tell you, that's right, 5 things. I better stick to it, right? 5 things. So first of all, number 1, Prokofiev was a Russian composer whose most popular music, which you may even have heard, included Peter and the Wolf. Has anybody heard of Peter and the Wolf? I see a lot of heads nodding out there. From the collection of 20 pieces called Visions, Fugitives that he wrote for many of his friends. This piece is called Inquieto, and he wrote this, they say that he wrote it for a selection of about 20 of his friends. So the piece is about 30 seconds long. He grew up listening to his mother play the piano in her home, and she mostly played Chopin and Beethoven, a lot of traditional classical music, and he really went out there and broke a lot of barriers with his music, Prokofiev, as you're going to find out in a minute. He was a musical genius. This is number 4. He was a musical genius. Wrote his first opera when he was 9 years old, but he was also a chess master, and he even beat a young man who later became the world chess champion. So he was pretty good at playing chess. And number 5, from the collection of 20 pieces called Visions, Fugitives that he wrote for many of his friends, this piece is very short. It's like, I don't know, 30 seconds, 45, 60, depending on how slow or fast I play it. I'm going to try not to play it too fast, though, because I'll end up falling on the floor. Curious, as you think about this piece, which friend do you think he wrote this for? If you notice on the back of your program, it said there's a big blank space, and I meant to bring pencils for everybody to draw pictures if you feel like it. And when I was growing up, sometimes a classical concert to me would be a little bit long when I was little, and I thought if only I could encourage people to just doodle, or if you're thinking of a picture in your mind, if you're 6 years old or 8 or 15 or 55 or 90, feel free to doodle on the back of the program here if the music inspires you to create art yourself. So this next collection is by Enrique Granados. Enrique Granados started piano lessons when he was 8 years old. Sounds pretty normal, doesn't it? He was a Spanish composer, and he wrote Ochos, Waltzes, Poeticos, and that means 8 poetic waltzes. Does everybody know what a waltz is? A waltz is a piece that's written in 3/4 time, and it's a dance. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's called a waltz. Well, this is a collection of waltzes, and it's a collection of very special dances. Granados was very afraid of water, and he was invited to play for the White House. It was during World War I, and he had to take a ship to get there. The time was during World War I. On the way home, his ship was attacked, and when his wife fell overboard, he jumped out to save her, and they were both lost at sea. And now, finally, of the waltzes that I will play of this wonderful man with the tragic ending, there's so much joy and sweetness and sorrow all mixed into one in this beautiful collection of waltzes. The beginning is in 4/4 time. It's in the introduction, but then it breaks away, and I'm playing 6 of the waltzes. As you listen to them, the moods will change and the colors will change. So think about different couples dancing to these different pieces. When you hear a familiar melody coming back, then you know that that's the last one. So I will now play for you, Enrique, Granados, 8 poetic waltzes. recognize it at the end when it came back again? I just love those pieces so much, so I've enjoyed practicing those. The final piece on the program is by Franz Schubert, who is an Austrian composer, and I have 5 things about him as well. Number 1, Franz Schubert was an Austrian composer who wrote more than 1,000 pieces of music, even though he only lived to be 31 years old. He wrote over 600 songs. One of his most famous pieces, which your mom and dad might know, is called Ave Maria. Lots of nods out there. He was very humble and he didn't show off. In fact, so many of the pieces that he composed, he didn't even show his friends. He just shoved them in the drawer, and they didn't discover them until after he was gone. Number 4, he loved Beethoven so much that he was even one of the torchbearers at Beethoven's funeral. When he passed away, his wishes were honored, and he was buried next to Beethoven. Now, I'm playing his Impromptu without the repeat today, just to give you an idea about this wonderful piece. With the repeat, it's a little bit longer, and I was keeping this program a little bit shorter so that we could all sort of absorb this wonderful collection of music. Now, this piece has so many different colors to it, and so I challenge my students also to think about what pictures come to mind when you hear Schubert's Impromptu, Opus 90, number 2 in E flat. Wow, thank you so much. I know almost every face out there. This is amazing to me today. I do have an encore just in case. So, you know, never be afraid of getting older. Never think that getting older means that things just stop happening. I think my friends know this. When I turned 50, I was published for the very first time. And what happened was that I had met somebody from Hal Leonard Corporation, Jennifer Lynn, And we just became very good friends, and she said, you should write something for Hal Leonard Publishing Company for educational music. And I said, that's not really what my thing is, but I'll try. So I sent her something, and she turned it down. I sent her something else, and she turned it down. Well, after about a year, and every time she turned it down, she would give me constructive criticism. This is what educational music, pedagogically sound music should be, this is how you should approach these things, writing for, especially for beginning piano. After about a year, I had a student named Daniel Peters, who was a teen at the time, and I thought, I really need a student saver piece. So I wrote a piece that was inspired by this kid with this fiery personality and so much intellect, but it was written about the Willawaws that we see spinning across the top of the water in the wintertime in a really good storm. Well, I emailed this piece to Jennifer Lynn, and I said, and it was honestly, honest to goodness, I meant it. I said, maybe Hal Leonard what I had isn't what Hal Leonard's looking for, and that's totally fine, but I'm kind of thinking it'd be fun to be published, so here's something I wrote today. And she emailed back within minutes, and she said, interesting, I was just thinking about you today, and this piece is perfect. So a couple days later, she called and she said, guess what? We're going to debut it in New York. And I said, wow, can I come? And there was a long silence on the end of the phone. She said, well, yes, you can come. So I debuted it in New York City about 14 years ago, 12 years ago, I don't remember now, 12 years ago, 2012. And a little while later, the video, of course, has been seen. If you look it up on the internet, you can see kids from around the world playing Willawaw. It was selected by the National Federation for their catalog one year. It really took flight, just like a Willawaw. And you all know what a Willawaw is, right? Right. Well, there was a young man, I shouldn't really say this, especially since this is live feed, but there was a young man watching my video apparently on YouTube, and he said, it's so weird to see that old lady playing Willawaw. I thought I looked really good that day. And I was only 50. And I loved it for two reasons. Number one, he felt like it was his. He felt like it belonged to his generation. That was a huge compliment as far as I was concerned. And the second compliment came from a dear friend of mine who actually is now my piano teacher, Deborah Ramosin, who said, dude, that's the composer. So anyway, I thought it would be appropriate for me to play Willawaw since I did mention it in the notes in the program. And I hope you enjoy it. And let me know if you see the Willawaws. For joining us. Thank you to the Unalaska City School District for giving us this opportunity to have recitals here on this stage. Thank you for our Mr. David Paddish, who is our band teacher, who is awesome, who set the stage up for me today and made it nice and clean, and I will leave it clean when we leave. And to the PCR, who has always supported the music program from the very beginning. When I was hitchhiking from house to house in 1996, and they said, we have a place for you to teach. So it's been a long run, it's been a good run, and I'm so grateful to be here. And thank you, all of you. Big hugs. And let's go out.